Good afternoon. My name is Blaine Alexander, and I am a student at Henderson State University, and I am getting my district level certification, and this is my final presentation. Dr. Judy Jenkins is my advisor, and so as part of my presentation, we will be looking at the ELCC standards one at a time. We will look at what those standards mean and what evidence should be provided to represent each one of those standards. Standard 1.1, candidates understand and can collaboratively develop, articulate, implement, and steward a shared district vision of learning for a school district. I really understand why 1.1 has to do with developing a mission and a vision and laying that foundation for all of the work in a school district. This is what an effective leader will do. An effective leader will gather all stakeholders or representatives from all stakeholders to really look at what is the district's vision. What do we want to look like in 5 years and 10 years? And what are those strategies that are going to help us get there? This is more than slapping a statement on the wall. Oftentimes, we as school leaders look at this as something that is a compliance issue. The state makes us have a mission statement and a vision statement. And so we sit around and we create those and we write them down and we put them on the wall. And then we go about our business without ever talking about those again. If you look at the verbs in 1.1, you don't have to develop and articulate, but you also have to implement and steward a district vision of learning for a school district. What does that vision look like? What is the evidence that we are living that vision? That is the most important part of 1.1. It's living that vision and not just creating that vision. The artifact that I used, the reason I pulled this one is that I had the opportunity to work with North Little Rock High School back in August of this past year on developing a new vision, a new mission, and a new set of core beliefs for North Little Rock High School. The high school principal was aware enough that as a second-year principal there, that the current vision, the current mission, and the current set of core beliefs were outdated. None of the stakeholders had ownership of those, and so he wanted to start with those foundational principles. And so the artifact that I'm using is I was able to facilitate creating a new mission, a new vision, a new set of core beliefs with all of the stakeholders at North Little Rock High School. ELCC 1.2. Candidates understand and can collect and use data to identify district goals, assess organizational effectiveness, and implement district plans to achieve district goals. This might be one of the weakest areas when it comes to effective leadership. You often hear the term, we are data rich and implementation poor. We have so much data out there, and I think sometimes it's overwhelming, and as leaders we often wonder, what data do we use? The important part here is not just using the data to identify goals, but implement district plans to achieve those goals. Oftentimes we have data, we look at it, we look at our current reality, but we fail to use those data to create a district plan and district goals for school improvement. The artifact that I used for this standard is some pictures that we have some of our work that we used at 7th Street Elementary School in developing a strategic plan. Our strategic plan, we based it on our data. We decided what did we want the school to look like. We looked at our vision, and then we developed strategies to move us from current reality to that vision. And here's some of the work that was put together and looking at multiple forms of data, not just academic data, but also attendance data, tardies, absentees, teacher absentees. All those multiple forms of data influenced our strategic plan. 1.3, candidates understand and can promote continual and sustainable district improvement. This should be the goal of every leader, is school improvement. Sometimes I use that term with some of our school districts, and the mentality is, oh, we're not very good at what we do. But if you just look at the term school improvement, that applies to every school in the nation. Every school in the nation has room for improvement. We need to look at our current reality and develop a plan to take us to that next level. The verbs that I want to show right here real quick: understand and can promote continual and sustainable district improvement. Oftentimes we will create that strategic plan, and again we look at it as a compliance document and we put it aside. But how do we use that strategic plan for continual and sustainable district improvement? The artifact that I used here is our strategic plan with North Little Rock Middle School. I worked with North Little Rock Middle School looking at their data, and we developed a strategic plan with measurable actions, date lines, people responsible, what evidence will be provided to show that we're moving in the right direction, and then our next steps. Because as we move through the strategic plan, our current reality continues to change, and then we continue to develop that plan even further when our current reality changes. 2.1, candidates understand and can advocate, nurture, and sustain a district culture and instructional program conducive to student learning through collaboration, trust, and a personalized learning environment with high expectations for students. We're talking about developing a culture that's focused on learning. If you visit schools across the state, it doesn't take you long to understand when you walk into each one, is their focus student learning? Or is their culture based on other issues that are barriers to student learning? We must understand, advocate, nurture, and sustain a culture that is conducive to student learning through collaboration, trust, and personalized learning. Culture is something that every school will have. You cannot be a school without a culture. A culture must be something that you as a leader must be proactive in developing, and that culture must be developed and created and surrounding student learning. And this is what 2.1 is telling us. Also, creating an environment with high expectations for students. The artifact that I used is some work that I did in my graduate work at the University of Arkansas on constructivist and narrative learning. And the whole paper was talking about, how do we define learning? How do we know if students are learning? Is it just an end result, or is it the process? And so as we all know, that learning comes through the process, and it's not just getting the quote unquote right answer all the time, but learning comes through the process. 2.2, candidates understand and can create and evaluate a comprehensive, rigorous, and coherent curricular and instructional program. The curriculum is what you teach. The instruction is how it's taught. And an effective leader must understand the difference and also understand how to evaluate that instructional district program. Sometimes we think getting into classrooms is really important, and it is. But it's what you do with the data that's so important. So many times as we work with leaders, we think creating the curriculum and going into classrooms and filling out forms, but we have to look to see, do we have evidence to say that those classroom visits transformed teaching and learning in that classroom? And that's what 2.2 is talking about. We have to make sure that there is an instructional district program that is based on rigorous instruction, relevant instruction, and with a coherent curriculum. The artifact that I used is part of a strategic plan for North Little Rock Middle School. They are using the initiative called Opportunity Culture. And in Opportunity Culture, they have teacher leaders that have other teachers under them. And those teacher leaders must understand how to look for effective instruction, how to coach others. And so my professional development with them has been to help them understand exactly what it looks like to have a comprehensive, rigorous, and coherent curriculum with high level of instruction. And so we developed that into a plan, and we worked that plan throughout the school year. 2.4, candidates understand and can promote the most effective and appropriate district technologies to support teaching and learning within the district. It is so important that we make learning equitable and personalized for all students. And I think this is one of the greatest challenges for a classroom teacher, and also is the greatest challenge for a leader to ensure that the classroom teachers are doing that. If you look at technology, this is probably one of the largest trends in education today. Computers, cell phones, iPads, how do we use those? But I want you to look right here. The most effective and appropriate district technologies. Those two words jumped out at me. Effective and appropriate. Just because we have technology everywhere doesn't mean that all of it is effective and appropriate. So as an effective leader, how do I filter that to find out how do we use technology appropriately and effectively to increase student learning? And this is what 2.4 is talking about. The artifact that I used is another North Little Rock Middle School. They are using the Summit initiative where everything is personalized. And as performance coach, leadership coach, I helped them implement this program and evaluate this program and ensure that teachers were using it effectively. Because although technology is good, technology will never take the place of an effective teacher. And the teacher must utilize it effectively and appropriately in the district for students to learn. ELCC 3.2. Candidates understand and can efficiently use human, physical, and technological resources within the district. When you're talking about resources, we have three main resources: time, people, and money. And when I read this standard, the one word, again, that jumps out at me is efficiently. And sometimes we have to make hard decisions when it comes to efficiently using our resources. Are we putting our money where it can be used for student learning? The harder decision, are we putting our best teachers' resources in schools where students need the best teachers? Or are we putting all of our stronger teachers in the neighborhoods that have the higher affluent neighborhoods? We must efficiently use those resources within the district appropriately. The artifact that I used was this past semester, or 2 semesters ago, I took finance with Dr. Durden. She did an outstanding job with this. I learned so much, but we had to create a budget for a school, and this was our final project. And so it helped me to understand how to efficiently use the fiscal resources that a leader has. And so this was a very, very effective tool to help me understand how to implement this standard. 3.4. Candidates understand and can develop district capacity for distributed leadership. The greatest leaders are known by the number of leaders that they create. Sometimes we see leaders that are intimidated from other leaders because we want to be the ones that have all the answers. We want to be the smartest one in the room. A really, really effective leader builds the leadership capacity around him or her to strengthen the whole school, and also gives responsibilities to those people and then lets them do their jobs. The artifact that I used at North Little Rock Middle School and North Little Rock High School, we were looking at the assistant principals. And the assistant principals were using so much of their time with managerial issues that probably a classified person could handle, and they were doing a lot of discipline. And so I wanted to pull them in with the principal's permission and start looking at their strengths. What strengths do they have instructionally? What strengths do they have as a leader? And so we have done a book study from Marcus Buckingham, Now Discover Your Strengths, and now all of the assistant principals know what their strengths are, and we are in the process of trying to utilize those to increase student learning, to better the culture, to improve the whole learning culture at both of those schools, which is much needed. So both principals realize if I need this addressed, I go to that person that has that strength. And so he and she are building leadership capacity around them. 3.5, candidates understand and can ensure that district time focuses on supporting high quality school instruction and student learning. In my notes here, I say, read that again. Ensure that district time focuses on supporting high quality school instruction and student learning. This is the whole foundation of school. This is why we have school. It's to make sure that we have high quality instruction and student learning to prepare our students to be successful. How do we ensure that there is high quality school instruction and student learning? That means that we have to inspect what we expect. We have to be in classrooms, we have to give actionable feedback, we have to be in classrooms again, we have to make sure that strategies are implemented that are research-based, that are effective. We use data to track progress, and it's more than just going in and doing a walkthrough and checking some boxes. So 3.5 reminds us that time in the classroom is a must. It's necessary. And the artifact that I use is, again, North Little Rock High School. We created part of our strategic plan to get assistant principals at the high school into classrooms. Instead of focusing all of your time on discipline and filling out forms and talking to parents about their student discipline issues, how do we get in classrooms to make sure that we have high quality instruction and student learning? And I really like the fact that the word "and" is in that sentence. You can have high quality instruction, or you can have a really good quote unquote presentation, but if student learning is not taking place, then we have to go back and revisit the instruction piece. And so this is what we worked on at North Little Rock High School, working with their 6 assistant principals, dividing them up, getting in classrooms, giving teachers actionable feedback. 4.1, candidates understand and can collaborate with faculty and community members by collecting and analyzing information pertinent to the improvement of the district's educational environment. As an effective leader, you must use multiple forms of data, multiple stakeholders giving you data about your school so you can triangulate those data. It's very, very important that faculty and community members work together and build that relationship. And the word that I want to pull out here is pertinent to the improvement of the district's educational environment. How do we want the community to be involved? What are the pertinent ways that we can involve the community? And that's where an effective leader must understand where is the community involved and where does the school district need to take the lead. And so the artifact that I used is a couple of years ago I worked with a school district in Northeast Arkansas. It was their school board and also stakeholders from the 8 sectors of the community. And we had a 2-day retreat, and we worked on looking at our mission and our vision, and we developed a plan. where do we want that district to be in 5 years, 10 years, and so forth. And the superintendent and the school board had representation and input from multiple stakeholders. And so that is the artifact that I used. We conducted a SWOT, which is a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of our school district, and used those data for school improvement. 4.2, candidates understand and can mobilize community resources by promoting understanding, appreciation, and use of the community's diverse cultural, social, intellectual resources within the district. An effective leader will recognize, appreciate, and engage the diversity of the school district. And when we say diversity, there are multiple types of diversity. We must look through a diverse lens. We must make sure that we're reaching out to all of our populations of our school district and meeting the needs of those students and those families. So many of our school districts across the state of Arkansas now have populations that are coming that do not speak English or are not used to our culture in some form or fashion. And we must continue to reach out to those diverse populations and meet their needs. We must go into the community. School leaders must go into the community and meet with those community members, because sometimes because of negative experiences at school, they will not come to the school. So we often need to go into those pockets of the community and meet with those people to get their input and let them know how important they are to our school district. The artifact that I used is a community meeting that we held at Lead Hill, Arkansas, the very north tip of the state. And they have a pocket of Hispanic parents, not a very large pocket, but a pocket of Hispanic students and Hispanic parents. And it was very difficult to get those parents to come to any school function because many of the parents could not speak English. And so during this community meeting, we did have an interpreter for our Spanish-speaking parents, and we had a proactive recruitment to get those parents there, and we had a good number of those parents and some very positive feedback because of that, and that bridged that gap between the school and that Hispanic community. 4.3, candidates understand and can respond to community interest and needs by building and sustaining positive district relationships with families and caregivers. Just like the previous standard, an effective leader must go into the community and build those positive relationships with the community. If we just stay in our building and just allow whatever gets out in the community to get out through word of mouth, social media, we need to be out in the community building those positive relationships where it becomes a partnership. The artifact that I used here is 7th Street Elementary in the North Little Rock School District had a community meeting. Our objective was to obtain information about getting students to school. That was our whole objective for this community meeting, getting students to school, because so many of them did not have access to getting to school if it rained, because so many of them walked. So many of them's parents maybe worked at night and they had to get themselves up. And so how do we get those students to school in order for them to learn? And that was the whole focus of this community meeting. And we developed some strategies where some of the school personnel worked with some of the parents to make sure that we had students at school. 5.1, candidates understand and can act with integrity and fairness to ensure a district system of accountability for every student's academic and social success. Again, we're looking at fairness, integrity, doing the right thing, making the right decisions morally, ethically, using all of our resources correctly with integrity and fairness. Those are things that any effective leader will possess in their personal characteristics. As a leader, I think that having integrity and fairness are two of the greatest compliments that an effective leader can really possess, and that someone can say about that leader. The artifact that I actually used an interview with the federal coordinator from one of our assignments with Dr. Durden's class on finance, because he did not see himself just as a finance person. He saw his job to support student learning through fiscal fairness and ethical finances. And so I thought that was interesting that he used that lens, that he was more than just a federal coordinator, but he supported student learning through fairness, through fiscal responsibilities. 5.2, candidates understand and can model principles of self-awareness, reflective practice, transparency, and ethical behavior as related to their roles in the districts. As leaders, we make decisions, so many decisions every day. What is that filter that we use? If we did not have a filter, then we would have to start from scratch with every decision. Ethical decisions is your filter. Your core beliefs, your integrity, your personal beliefs are the filters that an effective leader uses. I used our artifact, the ethical considerations on human resources. This was one of the classes that I had just this past semester with Dr. Cothran. This was a really effective activity because we were looking at how do we look at ethics through the lens of human resources, and how do human resource leaders in a district make sure that making ethical decisions is one of those filters, because there are so many issues in the human resource realm where ethics comes into play. 5.4, candidates understand and can evaluate the potential moral and legal consequences of decision making in the district. The artifact that I used is another assignment that I used with Dr. Cothran in her class when it comes to human resources and accountability. We looked at the personnel policies of a district. And as I look at this standard, the moral and legal consequences of decision making, the purpose of those personnel policies is to ensure that those decisions are made legally and morally, instead of based on just what the HR person feels like we need to do. These policies guide us. So many times there have been decisions made in a school district that did not reflect their personnel policies, and it comes back to haunt them. And so these personnel policies and analyzing those in this class really helped us understand the importance of moral and legal consequences of decision making in a school district. Another word that I want to show here is the very small word and. Moral and legal, because there are things that are probably legal that may not be moral. This standard says it has to be legal and also moral, and I really like the word and moral on this standard. ELCC 6.1, candidates understand and can advocate for district students, families, and caregivers. This is a passion of mine because so often I see that we just do school to students. We have school all day. And all the decisions are based on what's best for most of the adults. The families, the caregivers, the students typically do not have as much of a voice. The artifact that I used is my student voice focus groups that were conducted this year at North Little Rock High School. About every 2 weeks, I met with a group of high school students, about 10 to 12 students, to get their input about school improvement. How can we make our culture better? How can we create a learning environment that's focused on student learning? How can we help meet your needs better? Schools were created for those students, and those students gave me so much great feedback that I shared with the principal that learning culture is going to become more collaborative with students and teachers because of that student input. And so advocating for those students, advocating for families, making sure that they all have a voice is what 6.1 is talking about. advocating for district students, families, and caregivers, because this is their educational journey, and they should have some input and some voice in how they move through that journey. ELCC Standard 6.3, candidates understand and can anticipate and assess emerging trends and initiatives in order to adapt district-level leadership strategies. I love the term "can anticipate." We call this scanning the environment as effective in leadership. An effective leader can scan that environment to see what's coming over the horizon and be prepared for it when it hits. If we wait until those emerging trends hit, sometimes we don't have a plan in place to address those. A really good example of this is several years ago when there was an influx of non-speaking students that moved to Northwest Arkansas. The school leaders at that point scanned and anticipated those trends and were prepared for those students when they arrived and were prepared to meet those needs. The artifact that I used is one of the trends that Dr. Duffy, my mentor, and I discussed several times was the topic of merit pay. And he made me look at merit pay through a different lens. I still don't know where I stand on this, but that is an emerging trend, and he understands that that's something that he needs to look for as he looks forward and as he scans the future. And so it was a very interesting conversation as he is already preparing for what his district might do. And so this was an assignment in our human resources class in EDL 7483 this past semester, anticipating that emerging trend of merit pay. What do we do with that as school leaders? And in conclusion, this is my last slide, and what I want to do is I'm going to read this, but then I want to also say a couple of things on top of this. I do want to thank Dr. Jenkins, Dr. Cothran, and Dr. Durden for everything that they have done for me during the past 2 semesters, helping me get this district certification. And I really want to go back to August of 2018. I put out several feelers about getting my district certification on top of my doctoral degree. Within 24 hours, Dr. Jenkins responded to me, told me exactly what classes I could take that semester. I was already late to sign up for one class. She opened it up for me. Everything that the personnel have done at Henderson State University, Dr. Jenkins, Dr. Durden, everyone in the admissions office, all of the emails that I got from people that I can't even remember their names, everyone was so accommodating and so friendly. And I just want to say thank you all for doing that. It's been such a learning experience going through this process. And hopefully I will use everything that has been taught. And always will look at this experience as a very positive experience. So thank you all again. If I can ever help you in any way, please reach out and let me know. Thank you very much.